Hi guys, welcome back to the Explanation Pro. For today's breakdown, we are looking at yet another war and crime film based on true factual events called Valkyrie. The early stages of the film are set in Tunisia, North Africa. Tom Cruise as Colonel Klaus Schenk Graf von Stauffenberg is in anguish with the events taking place during the Second World War under Hitler's rule. He denounces Hitler as not only the enemy of the world but of the German regime. Upon being called by the general, he argues with him and states that records will be taken care of if we save Germany and not Führer's Germany. In the next scene, the planes start bombarding them from above, leading to many deaths. The film transitions to the 13th of March 1943 at the German Eastern Front, Smolensk, Russia. The planes land as everyone gathers around the base camp. Adolf Hitler arrives at the base camp. Two soldiers plant a bomb in a liquor bottle and present it as a gift for Colonel Stieff to Colonel Brandt. The plan fails as the plane has successfully landed. Treschow makes an excuse and arranges a meeting with Colonel Brandt, and reports at his office to take back the bottle. After arriving at the office in Berlin, Ulbricht informs Treschow that Oscar has been arrested by the Gestapo. Brandt informs Treschow about dissenters against the Führer. As the discussion continues, tension rises between the two. Brandt asks Treschow to open the bottle. Treschow cleverly escapes the situation and tells Ulbricht to stop searching for allies in Berlin. At the First General Military Hospital in Munich, Germany, Colonel Stauffenberg's wife visits the hospital to check on her husband and discovers that he has lost 2 fingers and 1 eye. The colonel proceeds to serenade his soldiers with honor badges. After some convincing from Ulbricht, the colonel agrees to meet the dissenters who are plotting against the Führer, Hitler. In a meeting with the dissenters, Colonel Stauffenberg asserts that the dissenters are well of their own if they misinterpret popularity with respect. The colonel goes back to his house. He finds his children and his wife at the location who are there to visit him. The youngest daughter salutes the colonel in a melodramatic fashion. The family quickly escapes to the bunker as there are explosions heard from outside. During the next meeting, the colonel proposes Operation Valkyrie to the dissenters. The operation enables Hitler to mobilize a certain group of men for his protection. Colonel suggests if the State Security, SS, arranges to protest against Hitler, then he would have to declare a national emergency. The restlessness will seize the operations in Berlin and the dissenters will be able to establish a new regime by killing Hitler. The plan is set in motion as the dissenters try to acquire Colonel Frum on their side. Frum is the only one who can initiate Operation Valkyrie. The colonel tries to pursue Colonel Frum, but all efforts go in vain. The movie continues as the scene shifts to a nightclub. The colonel sneakily meets up with a fellow general, Erich Feldgiebel, and informs him about his intentions. The colonel decides to rewrite Operation Valkyrie, allowing them to seize control of Germany by capturing Berlin in 3 hours. Stauffenberg has been designated as the military commander to execute the plan. In the Reich, he has been promoted to Chief of Staff and is not allowed to refuse the promotion. The colonel hires an adjutant, Heften, who is willing to do anything to support him in this act of treason against Hitler. On the 7th of June 1944, Stauffenberg and Heften arrive at the Berghof, Hitler's private residence. Stauffenberg and Heften are questioned by Brandt but are quickly rescued by Frum. Frum and Colonel Stauffenberg meet the Führer and hand him the amended copy of Operation Valkyrie for his approval. After a little deliberation, Hitler signs the new operation after keeping his faith in Colonel Stauffenberg. Stauffenberg and Heften meet with a plotter and an explosive specialist, Albrecht Ritter Merz von Kornheim, whose strategies to blast off the bunker to kill Hitler. The colonel informs that the failure of the explosives will have no effect on Operation Valkyrie as Feldgiebel from the communications team will cut all the communications. Shockingly, Ulbricht informs that the task will not be completed till both Hitler and Himmler are killed. Stauffenberg decides that he will agree only if the decision to hold off the plan is unanimous and includes the explosive specialist, Merz. The colonel alerts his wife and tells her about the consequences of his failure. On the 15th of July 1944, Colonel Beck instructs every member about the plan and provides them with a secret token. He narrates that Colonel Stauffenberg will start the operation as everyone is present in Hitler's meeting. Colonel Stauffenberg will authorize the man to initiate the explosives that are already planted. After the blast, the inside man will seize the communications. Ulbricht initiates Operation Valkyrie if Frum is still not convinced to join the coup. The reserve army will arrest state security and all the generals. Witzleben and Beck will take control of the state security and head of state. Dr. Gertler will take the position of the new chancellor. He will then address the nation and might be able to negotiate with the Allies to save Europe. Lastly, he informs that without the token, no one will be able to enter the premises. The plan for Operation Valkyrie starts unfolding. Ulbricht orders the reserve army to be on a standby position. The order is agreed upon as they believe it is some sort of a drill. The colonel sees off his family and flies to Wolf's lair. The reserve army is on standby in Berlin and is waiting for further orders. The colonel and Heften arrive at Wolf's lair, the checkpoint to reach the meeting. At around 12:45 p.m., they reach the bunker and prepare themselves for the meeting as they meet with everyone. Hitler arrives for the meeting. General Fromm is instructed to discuss his plans and proceeds to do so. The colonel informs Ulbricht that Himmler is not at the meeting and waits for their approval. Beck denies continuing the operation. The meeting ends abruptly as everyone goes back outside. The colonel's bag is suspiciously observed by one of the commanders. Till then the reserve army is instructed to go back as this whole situation is presented as a drill. Fromm gets angry and suggests that something like this should not occur ever again. Otherwise, he would get both Stauffenberg and Ulbricht arrested. The dissenters discuss the recent failure. Stauffenberg suggests that the reason for the failure of the operation is due to the political agenda. Karl Goerdeler gets aggravated and calls for a vote to relieve Stauffenberg from the operation. Karl is suggested to leave Berlin as he is suspected to be arrested by Himmler. Stauffenberg is given full discretion over the control of Operation Valkyrie. Stauffenberg tries to talk to his family over the phone but fails to connect through. On the 12th of July 1944, at 6 a.m., Stauffenberg leaves his house after intentionally cutting himself while shaving. He arrives at the meeting spot at 12:15 a.m. He asks Major Freyen for a changing room as he is bleeding from the wound. The meeting is postponed to 12:30 as Hitler is having lunch with Mussolini. The colonel informs the disguised inside man, Feldgiebel, about an essential personal call. The colonel proceeds and assembles the explosives in the changing room with Heften. Suddenly, Major Freyen tries to enter the room as it is getting late for the meeting. The colonel sets the timer by himself as Heften halts and stops Freyen at the door. Stauffenberg instructs Heften to get the car as he has got everything that is required. Freyen carries the brief and informs that the meeting has been moved to the conference hut due to the temperature. Stauffenberg joins the meeting and greets Hitler. He stands next to Hitler and has positioned the bag with the explosives in a strategic manner. The bag is then picked up and kept somewhere else by Brandt as he decides to stand near the Führer. Stauffenberg is called outside for an emergency call and leaves the premises. The colonel proceeds to join Heften at the car. The meeting is still going on. Within a small period, the bomb explodes, and Stauffenberg and Heften leave in a car. Feldgiebel proceeds to cut off the connections at Wolf's lair, abandoning every communication that is possible. Ulbricht is not set to move the reserve army as there has been no clear information about Hitler's death. Stauffenberg and Heften discard the explosives and pieces of equipment while driving away. They get off on a plane and make their way back. Back in Berlin, the explosive specialist without Ulbricht's consent orders to assemble the reserve army. Stauffenberg calls Ulbricht and informs him about Heider's death. He instructs him to initiate Operation Valkyrie under Fromm's name and meet him at his office in 15 minutes. Ulbricht informs the communication headquarters about Hitler's death and orders them to initiate Operation Valkyrie under Fromm's name. The reserve army is informed about the Führer's death. Fromm suspiciously speculates Ulbricht's claim. Fromm can connect to Wolf's lair and confirms that Oblarteich's claims are nothing but a lie as Hitler is still alive. Stauffenberg walks inside the room and suggests Fromm joins their operation. Fromm declines and threatens them about the consequences of committing treason. Stauffenberg seals the military base and advises the prohibition of anyone's entry. The chief of police decides to side with the coup and assure their full support. Everyone is gathered outside the room. Upon Stauffenberg's arrival, they hold their token and inform him about their support with pride. Stauffenberg instructs them to seize over Hitler's Germany by the dawn and suggests that it shall witness its last sunrise. Stauffenberg is convincing every ministry of the districts to be their allies as Hitler is not alive anymore. The reserve army arrives at the state security headquarters and successfully captures it. Stauffenberg can secure the government quarter and instructs Heften to acquire the men to seize more control. Stauffenberg is still worried as they don't have control over Berlin. At the communications, there are orders to arrest Minister Goebbels from the coup and Colonel Stauffenberg from Wolf's lair. Major Remmer confronts Minister Goebbels and tells him about his orders. He talks to the Führer and is informed to arrest the traitors alive. At communications, the officers decide to align themselves with Hitler's regime and stop all the communications from Stauffenberg. Major Remmer releases all the captured soldiers and informs them about the real coup. After losing contact with District 11, the dissenters are interrupted by the pompous general. He states that he requires General Fromm's word. He discovers that this is all an act of treason and loudly screams about the fake death notice of Führer. General Gerlach is not receiving Stauffenberg's call. On the radio, Hitler's death is being announced as fake news. Stauffenberg convinces everyone by telling them about Hitler's death as he has seen the explosives go off. Ulbricht apologizes and walks out of the room. More men follow him and continue to walk out of the room. Stauffenberg discovers that he is not able to connect to his family as all lines are cut. He informs Minister Beck that they will have to move and relocate him. The army moves towards the headquarters. Ulbricht writes a letter and places it in front of his family portrait. The army rushes in, arresting the soldiers on the premises. The men arrive at Ulbricht's office to arrest him. As they enter the hallway, they are confronted by Stauffenberg and his men who are trying to protect the minister. Firing breaks out, and Stauffenberg is shot on his right arm and is breathing heavily. The army arrives at the scene. Major Remmer declares Colonel Stauffenberg's arrest. All the members of the coups are presented in front of Fromm. Fromm, in the absence of Hitler, announces everyone's death, leaving Minister Beck. Beck asks for a gun, while everyone is trying to pronounce Fromm as a part of the coup. Beck takes the gun and shoots himself in the head. The other disguised members of the coup are arrested and presented in front of the court-martial awaiting their judgment. Hitler speaks on the radio and announces that he is all right. He declares the crimes that are committed by such men are unparalleled in German history. Ulbricht is presented in front of the army and is shot dead. Henning blows a bomb on his face, exclaiming that they don't have to share the same world as Hitler. Merz is killed by the army. Erich Feldjebel is captured and executed. Karl is hanged to death. Heften comes and stands in front of Stauffenberg as he is being presented to the army for killing. Von Witzleben is announced for execution. Stauffenberg shouts, "Long live sacred Germany," before being shot by the army. Fromm is executed in the following year. The movie displays that this was the last attempt out of the 15 attempts by Germans to assassinate Adolf Hitler. Finally, it displays that after 9 months, as Berlin was surrounded, Hitler committed suicide. Stauffenberg's wife and his children survived the war. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe my channel for more videos like this. See you in the next video.